Welcome back to RK9 Rides. Today we're looking at the final two scooters in Segway's new third generation of electric scooters. We've already looked at the Max G3 and the GT3. Today we're going to be looking at the F3, the F3 Pro, the E3, and the E3 Pro. This is actually more models than I expected based on their CES presentation, but we'll quickly go through them and then we'll kind of look at the difference between the regular models and the Pro models, and we can see if the regular models or the Pro models are the way to go. So let's jump into the F3 here and look at some of the specs and features. I'll be doing reviews of both the F3 and E3 at some point in the future once I get my hands on the scooters, so subscribe if you want to see those videos when they come out. Let's start with an overview of the F3 here. I love to see that they've gone for full suspension, and I love to see that they've upgraded to hydraulic suspension in the front. Now, the suspension on the F2 Pro is actually really good, and I actually thought it was hydraulic. It was so good. But now we're getting actual hydraulic front suspension and elastomer rear suspension. So that rear suspension is going to be much more budget, and I don't think it's going to offer a ton of suspension. Top speed of 20 miles an hour, which is an upgrade over the F2. And as I suspected, they're kind of pushing the F series into the spot that the old Max series was in. So this is probably going to be the best value in terms of adult commuter scooter. 20% climbing slope and 1,000 watts of peak power is right on par with the previous generations of the Segway Max. They're claiming 44 miles of range, which again is on par with the previous generation Max G2. So with the Max G3 pushing up into the performance category, the F3 is now that super solid mid-tier commuter scooter. All the previous third generation scooters that I've looked at have had 11-inch tires. So this is the first time we're seeing 10-inch tires. 10-inch tubeless tires is more on track where you would expect this scooter to be. They haven't given us any numbers for their suspension on how much travel we're getting, but if it's similar to the F2, then it's going to be plenty for the style of riding that you're doing with this scooter and the speeds that it goes. Let's hope that they show us the rear suspension further down and see the exact nature of it. Imagine it's either going to come in the form of like a rectangular wedge of polyurethane, or it's going to be some sort of kind of rubberized bushing that is the suspension. I was hoping they would show it here because they are talking about both types of suspension, but we'll see if it's further down. Like with all of Segway's third generation scooters, you're getting self-sealing tires. That's going to be great to have the benefits of a pneumatic tire while also getting increased reliability. You get more space on the riding platform, which is great. Now, I'm not sure if this section is kind of raised like they did on the Max G2 and the Max G3, but I really like what they did with those, where you have a little bit of a tail, but you can still kind of hang the back of your foot off just a little bit and give you just a little extra space on the platform. You get the curved handlebars just like with the Max G3. It looks like they really nailed how much they come back towards you, so it's not too aggressive, but it adds a little bit of comfort and control. They've got the new keypad and the programmable button, which is nice. You're getting 1,000 watts of peak power, which is an upgrade over the F2 and kind of pushes it again into the Max G2 territory, kind of taking over in that middle tier commuter space. 20% should be plenty for any sort of hills that you would normally encounter. And I actually was really impressed with the previous generation of Segway scooters and how well they climbed hills and how zippy they felt, especially at their prices. They're claiming 44 miles of range in eco mode. This isn't really a realistic speed to be riding at unless you're a beginner rider. This is the number I care about more. 25 miles seems really reasonable. I like to see between 20 and 25 miles of minimum range on a scooter at this tier. You get their new display, which is available across their whole lineup, the navigation, the incoming call notification, and all your usual information. You get all the app features that they covered in their CES 2025 presentation and that I've talked about in all the previous videos. They've gone with the split dual braking, where you get a front disc brake and a rear electronic brake. That seems to be a very common compromise at this tier of electric scooter. As long as this front brake is good, and I assume it will be since this is Segway, scooters with this braking layout come to a stop in plenty of time for the speeds that you're going. Would I have liked to see dual disc brakes? Absolutely. I don't ever think you can have too much braking as long as the braking's dialed in properly, but just the front disc brake and the rear electronic braking should be more than enough. They cover their geometry again, their copyrighted, trademarked SegRide stability enhancement system. It just means that they've designed the scooter in a way that it's nice and stable. You've got the axis of the steering tube ahead of the middle of this wheel, and you've got plenty of rake angle in this tube, so it stays nice and stable even at the top speeds. Looks like you also get traction control with this scooter, so it seems like their whole lineup is getting traction control. If you want my thoughts on traction control, you can watch one of the previous videos. I don't want to rehash it for people who have watched all of these videos. Once again, you get an automatic headlight. They've kind of got this bar, which I don't know if that's a daytime running light or if that's just like a lower brightness light, but I imagine that this is adjustable like with the Max G3. You also get the built-in turn indicators in the bar ends and the low brake light. And their whole lineup looks like is now IPX6 water resistant. So that should be completely waterproof and you should be able to leave that out in just about any weather. It looks like we're nearing the bottom of the page here. So it doesn't look like they're going to give us a close-up look at the elastomer suspension. Now I can't tell if this is the suspension or if they're bushings. But in any case, I imagine that rear suspension isn't going to have a ton of travel and is just kind of a little bit of extra bump cushioning. It's really that front suspension that matters the most because that's what is hitting bumps first when you're riding. This front loop I originally thought was for aesthetics, but as we saw in the Max G3 video, it's actually to make locking more convenient. And then I saw a comment about someone saying like, oh, you could just cut through that and be able to steal the scooter. Yeah, you can just cut through a lock as well. So anyone who has the ability to cut through this U here would also be able to cut through most locks anyway. So I don't think this is some sort of weak point that people are going to be able to exploit. And then it looks like we get a lot of dedicated accessories, which is awesome. We saw the external battery being an option. I did not see this as an option for the Max G3. I would be very surprised if it's not available. But this is going to be a slightly more affordable way to extend your range while keeping your scooter relatively light. And I know a lot of people are going to be excited about this seat. It looks like they have a dedicated seat and it looks pretty good. Here's a quick look at the full specs. The only thing of interest to me is that this is no longer like a 31.6 volt battery or whatever the previous one is. It's like, well, it looks like it should be 48, but anyway, it's close enough to 48 volt, I think, to call it a 48 volt scooter, which is awesome. That's going to be great with top speed and acceleration fall off that the previous models had. The scooter will hopefully feel a little more zippy for the entire length of the battery. And then the other thing to note is max payload of 265. It would have been nice to see 280 or 300, but you do jump up to, I think, 280 or 300 once you get to the Max G3. So if you're a heavier rider and you exceed this, then I would say definitely go up to the Max G3. And then this is also notable, 42-pound weight. So that's over 10 pounds lighter than the Max G3, which might be relevant. If you don't need the extra battery and you're just looking for a simple commuter, then this F3 is going to be cheaper than the Max G3 and it's going to be lighter. Okay, now that we have a basis for the F3, let's quickly see what is different with the F3 Pro. I'm not going to go over every feature again. I'm just going to see what gets upgraded from the F3 to the F3 Pro. So you get the same claimed top speed, but you get slightly more motor power. Now, because this climbing slope percentage is higher, I assume they're actually putting this higher peak power to use. So theoretically, that should also mean a little bit quicker acceleration for the F3 Pro. So they didn't have this section on the regular F3 page. So I wonder if the F3 Pro is the only one that gets the extendable battery. It looks like it's about doubling your range. So being able to get 50 miles in sport mode is insane. Now, I imagine this battery is going to be hundreds and hundreds of dollars. I mean, if the scooter is between like 800 and 1,000, I mean, this battery might be $500. But if this is your primary scooter and you really need the extra range, then I think this is a really practical option and it's really cool to see. Okay, so here is another big change. You get a rear disc brake as well with the F3 Pro, which is really nice. I really value good braking power, so I think that is a great upgrade. Okay, so it looks like you're getting the same suspension, the same overall design, you're just getting a little bit more power and you're getting the dual disc brakes. And potentially this might be the only one that can take the extra battery. So in my opinion, if this is a $100, maybe at the most $150 upgrade, I think it's probably worth it for a little bit extra power, a little bit extra hill climbing, a little bit extra acceleration, and then also just having the reliability of dual disc brakes is definitely worth it if the upgrade isn't any more than $100 to $150. Okay, moving on to the E3 and E3 Pro. The E2 and E2 Plus were best sellers for Segway. And it was really the go-to scooter for teens and smaller riders and anyone on a budget at that $300 price point. Now I imagine they're going to be trying to tackle that price point again, while simultaneously delivering an upgraded product, and hopefully it is a better product. But let's take a look. I suppose right away we can see the new folding mechanism, and I talked about that in the CES 2025 presentation video. I'm not the hugest fan of this style of locking because it makes the scooter longer when you fold it, and you're also constantly pushing your weight down on the folding mechanism. This way it does fold down a little flatter, but other than that, I don't really see the upside unless this is a really great locking mechanism and there's no play or anything and it's simpler, but I don't know how it could get much simpler than the previous style. So this is something that I am confused about, but maybe I'll get it when I actually test the scooter. So they've gone from a suspensionless E2 to a full suspension E3. Again, it's the elastomer suspension. So I think it's a bushing in here, and then there's this, I guess you could call that a bushing, but it's just this cylinder here. And I imagine that is the same style that they have on the F3. So this here is the suspension. I'll be really curious to see if this makes any sort of impact or if this is strictly a marketing bullet point for them. Like, being able to claim dual suspension on a scooter that costs $300-400 is a huge brag over all the other scooters at the price. We saw with New, when they launched their KQi 100, they went from no suspension to front suspension, and that front suspension actually was pretty decent. I'm curious to see if this actually adds any sort of tangible benefit. 800 watts of max power and 20 miles an hour. So we're getting the same speed as the F3 on the E3. The original E2 only had a top speed of 12.5 miles an hour, and then the E2 Plus has 15.5 mile an hour top speed, but I really like to see it able to get up to 20 miles an hour. I think most entry-level scooters should be able to get up to 20. 15 miles an hour is just not quite enough, and I think that's why so many people, they get an entry-level scooter and it's only a matter of weeks until they're like, okay, I need something faster. But at 20 miles an hour, I think you could be content with your scooter a lot longer. This is also great for younger riders who are needing to grow into their scooter. So you can start them out really slow, you can limit their speed in the app, and then as they get comfortable and as they get older, you can bump it up to that 20 mile an hour top speed eventually. 28 miles of max range seems really reasonable. If they're able to keep their scooter under $400, most scooters under $400 are only getting single-digit miles of range. So even if in the sport mode you can only get half of that, 10 to 14 miles an hour, you're still doing better than the majority of scooters at the price. Looks like you're getting a different display, so the E3 is the only one not getting that new TFT display that they showed off. Oh, and that's actually it. That's the whole page. Okay, very simple. Let's see if the E3 Pro has any more information and we can see what the differences are. At a glance, it looks like the same folding mechanism, and it just looks like the max range is an upgrade, and then it's got the lighting, which the E2 Pro had as well. 34 miles is only 6 miles more than the regular E3. I'm really feeling like this E3 Pro upgrade is probably not going to be worth it unless you really like the underglow. Okay, well, I was hoping for more information. I'm glad that I didn't make this its own video. That wouldn't have worked. So it really looks like Segway is going to continue to have a stranglehold on the entry-level market. The price is the only thing I'm a little bit worried about. If they really need to be able to target that $300 price point, and if they can keep it around $300 or $400 for the E3, then they're going to continue to dominate this entry-level market. I also think it's smart from them to push the Max G3 more towards that performance category, because people who know the Max models and know the Max G2, they recognize the brand, they like the model, and they're also probably at this point looking for a significant upgrade. And so they can really capture the same people who bought a Max G2 and are looking to upgrade. And then this F3 can become their core adult commuter scooter. And it looks like they've done a great job with it. So I'm super excited to get my hands on all of these scooters, the whole 3rd generation line. Subscribe if you want to see those videos when I review them. These kind of reaction deep dive videos are a little different than my normal style. It seems like you guys have really liked them so far, so leave me a like if you have enjoyed it. And leave me a comment if there's any other scooters you want to see me review this way before I actually get my hands on them. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.